Do you know what Fourier transformations are? I think it's where you can combine signals and then it creates other signals, right? Any advice for a beginner streamer, like streaming to 0 people, the direction of content, time of day to stream, etc. Listening to specific YouTube vids on these topics sounds so basic. LOL, big fan. Cool. No advice. Find something you're really good at, stream it, hopefully people watch. Explain what an integral is in a way that 95% of your audience would understand. I think integrals are super intuitive, or at least like the concept, right? Let's say that I have a function and it tells me every single day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say I have a function and every single day I just add one more thing to my, we have like one thing happening every day, right? Let's say it's how many times we masturbate per day. Oh, well, on day 1, we masturbate 1 time. On day 2, we masturbate 2 times. On day 3, we masturbate, on day 3, we masturbate 1 time. On 4, we masturbate 1 time. On 5, we masturbate 1 time, right? We masturbate 1 time a day. Well, what if I want to ask, by the time we get to 5, what if there was like an easy and quick way to figure out like how many times we've masturbated altogether or from a range, right? Well, then what you're really going to want is you want to add up this and this and this and this. And you want to add all the values infinitely, minutely. You want to add all of these together for a given range. And that's another way of kind of saying like if we have 1 here, we're going all the way up to here, and then we're going all the way over. So we're filling in all of this area underneath our function. And that's what an integral is. An integral is just describing all of the area underneath a curve in a function for a given range. Or, well, I mean, an integral is written as a whatever. So integrals just help you basically add up all of the points of data that you have of a given function, I believe, right? Is an integral? Why did that guy put question marks in chat? Because I'm retarded. Oh, okay. That is correct. Integral calculates the area under the curve. Yeah, but it's not just, don't memorize slogans. Don't just memorize slogans of area under the curve. It's not just area under the curve. It's telling you like how much data, or not, I'm sorry, not data. It's telling you like how much stuff has happened in this function for a given range. That's what area under the curve is. Yeah, you can memorize area under the curve, area under the curve, area under the curve. But what we're really asking is like, okay, like, so you're telling me, you've given me a function for how much stuff has been produced by a given people, okay? And this function is accurate out to 100 days. And I want to know on day 100, or from days like 80 to 100, how much has been produced, right? Well, we can integrate the function rather than saying, I need to add up like f of 70, f of 71, I can integrate the function, and then I can take the value of a given day or subtract it from another, and now I have all of the data, like how much was produced or whatever because of the area under the curve. Sure, don't just memorize like area under the curve. Yeah, continuous summation I think might even be a better way, but I mean, it depends. Obviously they're different functions. What's a derivative then? A derivative is telling you how a thing might be changing. The concept of a derivative is important because it helps us sometimes when we're talking policy as well, right? So let me see if I can fuck this up. If you have a function like this, okay, how much is this changing, right? The derivative of this is 0. There's no change, right? So this function must have like no exponents involved, I think, right? I think this would be like f of x equals just 1. Is that what this would be? Because that value is, no. Hold on, I'm fucking retarded. I don't even remember how to write basic anything anymore, okay? I just remember the concepts. I can relearn the exact shit. I just remember the concepts, okay? So at 1, the value is 1. At 2, the value is 1. At 3, the value is 1. Oh yeah, it would be. F of x equals 1, right? This is nothing is happening here. Right? Any constant, yeah. If we have a function like, if you have a function like this, then you might want to know, Jesus. I don't remember any of the, you memorize all of these. You just know all of these, like x squared and then the derivative. I don't even know the derivative of x squared. It's not 2x because that's the integral, right? Or is that the derivative shortcut? No, that's the derivative. The derivative of x squared is 2x. The derivative just tells you how quickly a thing is changing. Like what is the rate of change on a particular thing. This might be valuable because let's say that we're looking at Like if we were comparing like this versus this, right? Like let's say we're looking at inflation, right? Inflation might be increasing, or the rate of inflation might go down. When people are talking about a rate, they're always talking about a derivative. That's another word for derivative, basically, would be a rate. So I don't even remember how you write these. What the fuck? Something is exploding outside. Yeah. Oh, shit. There was a really good shortcut. Somebody put this in chat like a year ago. It was it's speed. What was it? It's like acceleration, speed, and distance, I think. And one is like this would be your distance. No, fuck. Can I do this? No. This would be your distance. This would be your distance. This would be your speed. And this would be your acceleration, would be 0. Am I making this up? Velocity? Don't say velocity. Velocity and speed are not the same thing. Everybody uses them interchangeably. Velocity is a vector that has two components. It's magnitude and direction. Velocity is always pointed at a particular direction, I think, in order to be considered a velocity, okay? So don't use velocity and speed interchangeably. They're not the same thing, okay? If you're using acceleration, you have to use velocity. Wait, is that true? Maybe that is true, and I just don't remember, so fuck me. Speed is a meaningless term in most higher math. Yeah, probably. Speed is the distance over time. Actually, that's true. There is no such thing as like, we don't, even in common parlance, we don't usually speak about speed. I think boats will talk about knots, but we actually just refer to speed as like how fast are you going? I'm going 60 miles per hour, right? You're not even using like a singular unit for it. You're speaking in yeah. There you go. Suck my dick. A rate of change? No. Well, 60 miles an hour. No, that wouldn't. I don't think that is. I don't think that is, but I don't remember. So don't. Anyone hear a microphone buzzing when Destiny speaks? It's not a buzz. It's my units for speed or distance per time. True. It's my AC. I don't know if the noise gate is good or bad. I don't know. I can eliminate it. I don't know. What do we think? We've been using it for a few days now. When I don't speak, there's no noise at all with my noise gate. Is it worth it or is it dumb? The world has noise in it. Okay. Based. This would just be having my AC humming in the background. It's wild how much signal processing overlaps with other fields as well. Even something like the attention mechanism in transformers, ChatGPT, can be thought of as a form of kernel smoothing. If I'm just listening, the noise gate makes me think the stream stopped or something. Oh, okay, maybe. That's the main reason I can't watch Loner Box or Hassan. Okay, well, fuck it. You know what? What is sine? I don't remember. Weren't there weird people that like molested triangles a bunch and then they thought they saw like certain relationships and they're like, oh fuck, sine, cosine, tangent. But I don't. I remember like SOHCAHTOA, but I don't remember how they got those. I just don't remember. Okay, last random math meme. We all did I make you guys watch the piano music video? I think this counts as Fourier transformations, where you can combine two waves and then I don't know if you would say it's the interference pattern or just the addition of both of these waves to each other can create other waves. No, don't remove it. They are trolling. Oh, wait. Hold on. We're going to do a quick poll, actually. Okay. Should I have a noise gate on? Eliminates all background sound when I'm not talking. Because we've had it for a few days now, so you guys can tell me. Yes, noise gate. So when you are not speaking, it is silent. No noise gate. I want to hear the background noises when you are not speaking. Okay. Fourier transforms when you express any function as an infinite sum of sine waves. Oh, then maybe I'm retarded. I don't know. Based. Can you explain why the first homotopy group of S1 is isomorphic to the integers in an easy to understand way? Honestly, that's a lot more difficult than people think. If you just consider the usual covering of P, R sum to S exponent 1, and we choose B sub 0 equals P of 0, we have the standard isomorphism, and basically that's it. Oh, wow. No noise gate. All right, well. Does your noise gate allow for it to set a range, like reducing noise by a certain dB when you're not talking rather than muting the auto? Well, I mean, I can turn it down, I guess, if you want. But, like, what the fuck is the... I think I'd basically be changing the limiter. Hold on. Maybe something like this. Well, I don't know if that's coming through at all. Why not? Wait, fuck, hold on. Does this eliminate something? Nope. No, fuck, I just did the wrong thing. Oh my god, why are you fucking my shit up? Nah, fuck that. It's all or nothing, okay? If you can combine if you combine certain notes on the piano, you can make the piano talk. I think this is like adding waves together, adding things together to make other waves, more complicated waves. I think.
Hello. I have something piano. Can you understand me? I'll play the piano for you. Since I play the piano, I will also sing. I hope you enjoy.
I don't think this is very clear. Like you probably need the subtitles, but it gets the point across. Set the gate to only be open when you're talking. Keyboard triggers the gate to open. Background noises like the AC should be relatively imperceptible to the vocal tone. If gate opens and closes quickly with voice signal, the gate closes too quickly, in my opinion. I mean, well, now I just turned off, so get fucked. Hello. I mean, I can slow down the release. I'll put it at 600, I guess. If you had to guess the last math question, what would be 0 to the power of 0? Well, the answer is 1, but I think, but I don't remember why. I feel like I read a great explanation of this before, but I don't. If speed is relative, why is the speed of light a hard cap? What's the speed relative to? There's also a good answer for that, but I don't. That's like I think that's a special relativity question. Because the speed of light is constant in every frame. That's why like time dilation or whatever exists. I don't think I can explain it. Fuck. Someday we'll go back and learn, because I feel like I've gone back and I've tried to refresh it up on this refresh on this so many times that I still can't explain it well. I just know that the speed of light is the same in every single frame of reference. And it has to be that way. You can't go faster than that. And photons, I don't think ever travel slower than that. Yeah. It's not the speed of light, it's the speed of causality. Sure, if you want to say sure. But photons always, because photons, I believe, are always massless, so they always travel. They are slower in water. Are they slower, or do they have a different wavelength? I don't remember. What's the difference? Oh man, you're killing me. The speed of sound in air will be a certain speed. I think frequency is the distance between peaks. No. Yes, frequency is measuring the distance between peaks on a waveform. Higher frequency means shorter distances, lower frequency means longer distances, but it doesn't actually measure the speed at which that particular thing is propagating through a medium. This says light is slowed down in transparent media such as air, water, and glass. Oh, well, fuck me, I guess, right? That same in every frame is valid for vacuum only. Okay, maybe. Okay. Light never slows, it just bounces off more shit, but that might be what you mean by slows. Oh, maybe? The idea is also true for acoustic waves traveling in the subsurface, and oil and gas exploration operates on the fact that we can detect when acoustic waves traveling the subsurface reaches a layer with different acoustic impedance. Oh, sure. The confusion is that speed of light is referring to different concepts. It might be. I don't know. This is too much right now. We don't need to get into this right now.
Alles klar? Wohl kaum, das lässt sich aber ganz einfach ändern.
responsible. And decoupling, communication, argumentation.
Schon erstaunlich, wie genau plötzlich die Worte der Deklaration für einen internationalen Gerichtshof gegen Umweltverbrechen verständlich werden. Wien modern war.
Okay. Don't care, not in English. Can you explain why two stationary astronauts equidistant from a light source cannot measure the same photon even though the photon is a wave traveling in all directions? Because I don't think it's just a wave. I think it's they're actual particles, right? And it's going to be different. It's two different particles that are hitting two different people if they're in two different areas, right? They're emitting like multiple particles. It's not the same one, right? Yeah, I understand everybody is typing wave particle duality, but I don't think that impacts anything that we're talking about here. Okay. Do we want to do this?
The setup here starts with a cylinder full of sugar water, basically, and we're about to shine some white light into it, but before it gets there, it passes through a linearly polarizing filter. And what that means, basically, is that if you look at all of the light waves beyond the point of that filter, those waves are only going to be wiggling in one direction.
No, we don't. We don't need to do this. We don't need to do this right now. I got linked this. This video has
What does it mean
5,000 views. Why? Was I linked this?
to disagree about facts with someone you respect and who is acting in good faith? Facts should have one truth value, and you're both looking for the truth, so how can you disagree? An obvious answer might be that one person is missing some information, but we still have disagreements when everyone has access to all the information. What if you're both wrong? And we can think about it with battling argument robots. Arguments carry baggage with them that you might not always be thinking about. They're coupled together under the hood, even though you think you're arguing about something in isolation. We'll get into more technical concepts in a second, but for now let's imagine a specific argument as a battling robot, or Argubot. You send your opponent. Maybe it does a zap attack, made possible by a lightning core, which is super effective on your opponent's Argubot. Your opponent, your friend, is just kind of pissed. Even if your attack demolished his Argubot, he wasn't using a lightning core and didn't think they were fair game for this battle. You haven't convinced him of your superior Argubot. He's just upset or confused. Now this is the best case scenario where you're both making your Argubots yourselves. But what if you just picked one up at your local Argubot vendor and you don't even know if it's using a lightning core yourself? Yes, I love robots, and yes, I will use any excuse to bring them up. But I'm describing arguments this way to help talk about the lens of cognitive decoupling, which I find a really compelling way to understand disagreements. First described by Canadian psychologist Keith Stanovich, cognitive decoupling is the ability to hold different context when making an argument. An example of this is playing devil's advocate, where you construct an argument made from parts of someone you disagree with. Going back to Argubots, this would be analogous to being able to build an Argubot from different sets of parts. I find it useful to talk about which sets of parts people consider relevant when making their argument. Let's try an interactive example. I'm going to give a statement, and you can pause if you like. Think about whether you agree with the statement, and what arguments you would give for or against it. Electric cars are good for the environment. Okay, so now think about what information and context you were taking into account with your argument. What set of roboparts did you use to make your Argubot? You might have said something like, electric cars are good for the environment because they run off battery power instead of fossil fuels, in which case you may be thinking about the context of the car itself. If you zoom your context out, you might say, electric cars are bad for the environment because the power used to charge the batteries is likely coming from fossil fuels. But you might couple some technical information to your argument, like, electric cars are good for the environment because even though power plants often run off fossil fuels, they are more effective at extracting energy from combustion than car engines, even accounting for the power wasted while traveling along power lines to your house. You might object to the idea that humans can impact the environment at all, in which case you might say, electric cars are not good for the environment because they have no impact whatsoever. You might even couple societal context and say, electric cars are bad for the environment because buying one is a way to feel you've done your part, but will make you less likely to put effort into lobbying the government to make actual carbon emission regulations. If you have another argument in context, add it to the comments, I'd be interested to see. You and your friend might agree about the importance of addressing climate change, but can disagree if electric cars are bad for the environment because you're selecting different contexts or sets of parts to make your Argubots. Unless people can first agree what contexts and information are relevant to the conversation, which parts you're building from, and are willing to decouple those they agree are not relevant, they will argue past each other because they're not talking about the same thing. Once you begin to recognize this pattern of disparate context couplings, you'll start to see it everywhere. You'll think to yourself, let's solve this argument by just deciding which contexts are important before we make our arguments. Should be easy, right? If you're interested in this topic,
Okay, I was half listening to this. Because I was banning chatters.
Demolished his Argubot. He wasn't using a lightning. Now this is the best case scenario where you're both making your Argubots yourselves. But what if you just picked one up at your local Argubot vendor and you don't even know if it's using a lightning core yourself? Yes, I love robots, and yes, I will use any excuse to bring them up. But I'm describing arguments this way to help talk about the lens of cognitive decoupling, which I find a really compelling way to understand disagreements. First described by Canadian psychologist Keith Stanovich, cognitive decoupling is the ability to hold different context when making an argument. An example of this is playing devil's advocate, where you construct an argument made from parts of someone you disagree with. Going back to Argubots, this would be analogous to being able to build an Argubot from different sets of parts. I find it useful to talk about which sets of parts people consider relevant when making an argument. Let's try an interactive example. I'm going to give a statement, and you can pause if you like. Think about whether you agree with the statement, and what arguments you would give for or against it. Electric cars are good for the environment. Okay, so now think about what information and context you were taking into account with your argument. What set of roboparts did you use to make your Argubot? You might have said something like, electric cars are good for the environment because they run off battery power instead of fossil fuels, in which case you may be thinking about the context of the car itself. If you zoom your context out, you might say, electric cars are bad for the environment because the power used to charge the batteries is likely coming from fossil fuels. But you might couple some technical information to your argument, like, electric cars are good for the environment because even though power plants often run off fossil fuels, they are more effective at extracting energy from combustion than car engines, even accounting for the power wasted while traveling along power lines to your house. You might object to the idea that humans can impact the environment at all, in which case you might say, electric cars are not good for the environment because they have no impact whatsoever. You might even couple societal contexts and say, electric cars are bad for the environment because buying one is a way to feel you've done your part, but will make you less likely to put effort into lobbying the government to make actual carbon emission regulations. If you have another argument in context, add it to the comments, I'd be interested to see. You and your friend might agree about the importance of addressing climate change, but can disagree if electric cars are bad for the environment because you're selecting different contexts or sets of parts to make your Argubots. Unless people can first agree what contexts and information are relevant to the conversation, which parts you're building from, and are willing to decouple those they agree are not relevant, they will argue past each other because they're not talking about the same thing. Once you begin to recognize this pattern of disparate contexts,
I think I understand. I think this kind of goes along with what I'm saying. Like, some arguments are like proxies for other arguments. Like, somebody might say Trump is a good president because he's moral, but when they think of moral, they just mean that he will do tax cuts. So you might spend your whole time arguing against, like, well, what about when he did this with his wife, or what about when he did this with his the way that he treats women, or what? And they're not thinking about they don't care about those things. So that you're not really arguing against the same thing, even though you're kind of talking about the same macro concept, maybe kind of a little bit, but. Can you explain why entangled particles cannot be used as a faster than speed of light communication? Because they're entangled around my balls. Got him. What is this? Hi, what's up? What do you want?
Hi, I have watched a bunch of your debates, and I have some practical advice or thoughts and stuff like that I wanted to share, because last time your chat roasted the fuck out of me for talking about stuff that was too abstract. So
go for it.
I changed my game. Okay. Tariffs, whenever they're brought up, there is a very good talking point against them that I have not seen you use in any of your debates against it for like the last month, which is that, you mentioned the thing about increasing prices, but I think another thing that is relevant is how it actually decreases jobs and actually loses American jobs, which is like one of the things that the tariffs are meant to do. Do you know about this argument, or?
I mean, I can make it, but it requires, I think, a little bit of economic groundwork, so I tend to avoid those arguments because people are fucking stupid as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that complicated, right? I mean, the way it would just be said is that, like, hey, we tariff them. Sure, that industry, there's more jobs, but it's more expensive. But then every other industry that relies on that good now has a more expensive production process.
Yeah, I say this a lot when we talk about localized losses and global gains. But the problem is that the response to that is going to be, okay, yeah, but when everybody is having all of their industries protected, now everybody's making more money. It's that. So if you tariff a particular thing, especially something that's early on in a lot of supply chains, and that thing becomes more expensive, then technically every single worker is hurt downstream from that supply chain, even though you're helping some workers. So you could say this, you go like, okay, well, fine, sure, maybe it'll help these workers, but it'll hurt everybody else. But then the next response, because I've had this argument with people, the next response is, well, but everybody's going to have tariffed jobs, so it's going to help all those people.
But then they're committing themselves to tariffs on basically everything, which I think
they're already okay with Trump. They've already said they're okay with global tariffs. They want to be an autarky. They want everything manufactured in the United States.
To some extent, but I do think that there is a significant portion of people who are like, okay, I'm okay with significant tariffs, but I wouldn't be okay with tariffs on everything. And if I'm not mistaken, I remember when you bring it up to people, they are like, okay, tariffs on everything is dumb, but tariffs on specific industries might be good because X, Y, and Z reasons. So I think it's still a significant amount of people. Do you not think so?
No. I understand what you're saying, and it is true, but like, because I'll make this argument all the time, but then the problem is you just start to sound cold, because like people will say, oh, what about how we hollowed out manufacturing to Detroit? It's like, yeah, but the rest of the country is like buying all this stuff for way cheaper. It's helping everybody, but people don't see those gains because the gains are generalized, but they see the losses because the losses are localized. So it just doesn't hit as hard. That's why people hate globalism and they hate free trade and they hate all this. And it's like, okay, well, you don't see all the gains being made. You just see like some cities that have suffered, and that's it. It's hard to get people on board with the other thing because it requires a little bit more econ understanding.
But that's why I almost think, I mean, it's still going to go back. If you think that people are fine with like tariffs on everything and there's not a significant difference there, then I mean, I guess that's the end of that. But that's why I generally think that taking it into the employment direction is a bit better, because that is more practical, that is more concrete. That is one of the main reasons why, people talk about wanting to implement tariffs in the first place. But yeah.
Sure.
I guess it depends.
I mean, do a debate with somebody, show it to me and I'll see it. But I feel like I've tried this in the past and it's like, people just... Yeah, it's hard for people to understand this shit.
Yeah, because specifically I'm thinking about the debate with the, I don't know what her real name was, but the Marjorie Taylor Greene admirer, and the tariffs are brought up there, but the employment argument wasn't. Okay, more generally, webbing, the stuff that you talk about. So I think you developed the webbing like a long time ago. Have you figured out any strategies to try to break the web or pick away with it, or is it just like, I know that this is there, but I have no idea how to deal with it?
It probably depends on what the particular topic is or what the particular argument is.
Okay. So I think that there are kind of two ways to approach the web, and let me know if you've kind of actually no. What are the strategies that you have generally? Like the three most common ones you will use to address the web.
It just depends on how it comes up in an argument. Like if somebody tries to like, oh, but like, aren't you guys? Don't you want trans 3-year-olds? I'll just say no. I don't support that position. I'm not going to defend it. So or the most effective way I have of like breaking through, if somebody tries to like wokeify me, or if somebody tries to like hypocritically, or if somebody tries to attack me on like woke hypocrisy, then I'll usually just like own whatever they're accusing me of to move the conversation forward. So in my Jubilee thing, for instance, I think the woman said something, or one of the women said something along the lines of like, oh, are you saying that, are you misogynistic or do you not like women? And I said like, yeah, half the time I don't. I just like move the conversation forward and let them whatever, instead of trying to like sit there and fight on the stupid claim, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I had forgotten that that's originally how you coined webbing, which is something that people do to you. But the way I see coming up more now is almost like people's own kind of like webs of beliefs where everything is like hyper connected. Maybe you have a different term for this, but like everything's the deep state and Fauci and the Democrats and Hillary Clinton's emails and everything like that. And they have like these like personal kind of like clusters of belief system where everything is vaguely connected in some way, but not concretely. And if you go to any one of the points, they can connect it to everything else. Like these specific, like, I wouldn't say sophisticated because they're not rational in any way. They're not well structured, but like hyper dense and interconnected belief systems is the approach to that, to try to like break the belief system, or to talk about like the individual like nodes or arguments for the things that they argue about?
I would have to grab it. It super depends on what we're talking about. Like, yeah, I would need examples. Like if somebody brings up a thing that is like webbed. If somebody brings up something like, oh, like I think that like black people don't have any disadvantages in society because of I don't even know. I don't know an example. I would need examples to ground this out. If somebody brings up like I think the JFK assassination was a giant hoax and we need to go back to the gold standard, that's going to be a whole different set of ways to deal with that. Then yeah, I don't think I could generalize an approach to this at all.
Okay, I see what you mean. Because one of the things I've noticed is that oftentimes, and I think you're very good at this, you want to get into specifics, which is good because, they will bring something up or they will try to say a bunch of things and be like, okay, hold on, slow down, let's take it one by one. And you will try to like attack like a specific connection or a specific kind of like node in the web, whether that be like Hillary Clinton or Fauci or whatever it is, and explain why their opinion on that is unreasonable. But that tends to not be effective, right? Because in their mind, it's like, okay, we can do without Hillary Clinton and my whole kind of like system of beliefs still kind of works well. So unless you have somebody like tied to a chair in a straitjacket, you're not going to have enough time to go through every single node to the point where the web will actually take substantial damage. So what I was thinking, and I'm wondering if this is something that you've tried before, is instead of trying to like snipe individual points in the node, trying to like sort of like weave the web up in and of itself to make it like completely incoherent, like within an argument. So I'm thinking stuff like, for instance, one of the things that people always say that are conservatives, they bring up BLM, right? Summer of Love, as like one of the biggest bads from the left from the past 4 years. But I think one of the, but then on the other side, they will also have this, belief of like being rabidly anti a bunch of different institutions, FDA, FTC, FBI, DOJ, CIA, all of these different things. And I'm wondering if instead of trying to target those in isolation and being like, okay, well, the BLM and having a big argument about them, and then having, okay, let's have an isolated conversation about the FDA, sure, they did this thing wrong, but instead trying to be like, okay, whoa, are you not kind of like the defunded police people? Like, you have a problem, with an institution just like they do, but instead of actually like being discreet and trying to work with it, you're just like the radical, insane left.
Yeah, but the difference is they think that their motivations are pure, so they're okay with it.
So you don't think that like, in some way at least, because it's like both of them are like such strong archetypes in their head of like things they ascribe to people and things that make up their core belief system, that there isn't at least some higher degree of cognitive dissonance there?
I feel like, Elon Musk was literally on video finally owning the thing that I've been accusing him of being for so long that conservatives fought against, where somebody was like, we need a George Soros on the left, and then Elon Musk raises his hand and everybody claps and shit. And it's like, okay, well, fuck, this is what I've been accusing of being forever. So I at this point, I don't think conservatives care, because the two things are that, one, they think that their motivations are more pure, and two, they think that the other side is already engaging in all of that bad behavior. So their engaging in it is justified as a response, basically.
Okay, I see what you mean. So in your view, there is essentially, because it sounds like there's almost no argumentative way to break through then, right?
It's like a whole combination of things. Yeah. Okay. Well, I prepared something about that specifically in terms of, because I know you mentioned kind of like social spheres or sense of belongings and stuff like this. So I have something in the end for something I think the right is doing that the left isn't doing, that I'm interested to hear your opinion on. But sure. Just to be clear, I don't think any of these are like bad ideas. It's just these are all things that are like working into, like, there are times when some of these are going to deploy, times when they're not, but these all work in tandem with like 5 or 6 other things. I don't think there's like a silver bullet for any of this, but yeah. But okay.
No,
yeah,
of course I understand, and I know that you've spent so much more.
Yeah, and I don't think you think that yet, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Another thing that you could that could be interesting and maybe could work, and I'm interested to hear your opinion on it, is that to kind of push back against the anti-institutionalism thing using like another aspects of the right-wing web. So part of it is BlackRock, Pfizer, like big companies controlling stuff like this. And I think that there is an argument in there somewhere. As soon as people bring up BlackRock or whatever big scary companies, you can make the argument that actually Trump's like militating against these institutions makes you as a people weaker. If you're afraid of these companies, like, what's the only way you could ever bring them into check? It's by having strong and robust institutions that the American people can kind of leverage through their elected representatives and stuff like this. And by being so anti-institutional, you're kind of also wanting to throw out whole institutions. You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and you don't really have the tools to be able to deal with these big scary companies that are meant to be a check when you are so anti-institutional as you are.
Yeah, but I think they think that the free market can solve that, but the government is worse because it can't go out of business because they steal your taxes at gunpoint. And then like they end up simping for huge big businesses because they like they end up like, how do you support Elon Musk, right?
Yeah, no, I see what you mean, but from my understanding, I don't think I don't think the average like BlackRock conspiracy theorist believes that the free market will like eventually solve for BlackRock, right?
Well, they say that stuff like that should just be made illegal, so the government is making it illegal or something, or it can't be that big or something like that, basically. Yeah.
Okay, but and then don't you think that there is a connection between like the type of government you would need in order to be able to maybe do some kind of like antitrust in this direction is being undermined by a lot of the kind of MAGA anti-institutionalism, anti-regulation?
Yeah, but there's I mean, like, you should try these arguments against somebody. Everybody always has debate tips for me, and I wish I could see you try these in a live environment that you can watch somebody walk through, because it feels like I'm just like contrarianing you. But like, I know all the dialogue trees for like these things. Like, having a government that bans certain types of regulation isn't the same as having a government that has 50 million new regulations, and banning this is actually better. I'm not saying all government is bad, just that right now we have a bureaucratic government with corrupt Faucis and blah blah blah. Like, I agree that everything you're saying is logically correct, but I think there's escapes for all of these things. You have to like hit them like in 20 different ways to get any of this to come through. You should try some of these though. I think Rob Noor and there are other people that like Orbit Pisco and are in these servers that do like debates, but you should try some and then come back and report your
I find, yeah, I don't do like YouTube and streaming, so I'm not in these spaces very much. I mean, I pay attention to your stuff, but I'm not spending a fuck ton of time debating people online anymore. But who knows? Maybe I should. Maybe
you
that's
should
a
try
great
it. Fuck
use of
it.
my
See how they
time.
do it. Yeah.
But so when you're talking about the things, like it's logical, but it's not going to land. Is that because it's not? Is that because it's not punchy enough? Is that because it's too complicated and it's not direct? Or like, what do you think is the major reason why stuff like this won't land?
So if I were to tell somebody, how are you going to regulate big businesses by defunding the whole government? I think the answer is just going to be, well, I just won't defund those parts.
Okay.
Or it'll be the only reason these businesses have gotten so corrupt is because of government corruption anyways, giving them all this power.
Okay. I think that, I mean, the way I would see this, being employed if you want to be brutally effective is just like going back to the question of like, if they try to be like, okay, the government propped them up in this way, or trying to like, if they go any other path than saying that, oh, we want to fund those parts of the government. I mean, it feels like the question that needs to be asked over and over is like, okay, like, how are you going to tackle BlackRock without institutions? How are you going to do it? And just like asking that question over and over again until they eventually be like, okay, we're not going to defund like those parts of the government. And then, I mean, I'm sure that there has to be some kind of like a.
The problem is they
like
always allude to like
politics.
the like Cenk did this too in a conversation I had this morning. Pegman will probably post. They always do this where they're like, we're just going to go line by line through the budget and cut the inefficiencies, or we're just going to get rid of the people that are bad but keep the people that are good, and they'll never be able to give you anything more specific than that. Like that's all they'll say. Like obviously some government regulation is good and we'll keep that, but there's a lot of red tape and bureaucratic, because there are a lot of debates where I ask somebody, I'm like, can you give me one regulation that Trump cut or one thing that you think should change? And they never have a specific. And it always like, well, I don't know anything particularly about that. I could look that up later for you, and that's it. So it's like, yeah.
Okay. I didn't go this far, but let's say that was the case that, on Trump's platform or during his previous, presidency or whatever, he removed the anti-big multinational evil business law that allowed the government to, do antitrust against companies like BlackRock, for instance. Wouldn't it be like in that case, if you could be like, okay, how are you going to do it without institutions? How are you going to do it? They're like, okay, fine. It won't be those parts of the government. And then you're like, oh, but like Trump, like literally removed the exact tool you would be able to use to do this. Do you think that would still be effective? Would be effective enough in that case?
I mean, I try. There's always an excuse. Like over all the stuff that Trump wanted to do. Like I've literally said, like Trump tried to repeal and replace like the ACA, and now he's saying that he likes pre-existing conditions, and they're like, oh, okay, well he changed his mind, he can do that. Or like Trump literally said he was going to do all these things at the border, and he didn't get anything done. Well, that was because of the deep state. Okay, well Trump literally tried to do XYZ that he had the ability to do, but like he couldn't get anybody to go along with him. It's like, well, that's because he didn't choose the right people. Like there's an infinite amount of excuses. Like if you think about one single thing that a conservative will blame on Trump that he's ever done that's bad. There's nothing in the zeitgeist of conservative media where like, yeah, Trump did mess this up. Not a single thing. The only mistake he's ever made is not having people who are sycophantic around him. The only mistake he's ever made is having people that aren't like, it's the bureaucrats in the deep state that's stopping him. That's like the reason why he hasn't done anything. Yeah. It's always an escape, yeah. Again, like I've used like combinations of things you're saying. It's just like all in tandem working, and it's just like a lot of like at my Jubilee, one of the things that some guy said to me was literally like, you said they broke the laws creating fake slates of electors. Which laws did they break in like Georgia? And I'm like, well, I mean, you need the certificate of ascertainment. And he's like, no. Which law did they break? I'm like, are you asking? Do you mean like the penal code? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, oh, so then how am I supposed to believe you? And it's like, okay, like this is stupid.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna defend that, and I think there are ways to wiggle out of all of them. But yeah, okay. So that one not very effective. Okay, I have one more specific one, and then I have like the big picture thing. The more specific one is this was when you and Pisco, you were on Twitter Spaces, and then there was a question about the Patriot Act and everything, in a way that, oh, this is a democratic thing, and Trump would do better. I don't remember exactly how you responded to this, but I feel like there's a, like if you want to be rough with somebody and force them into answering something, there's like a a chain of dialogue that goes from, okay, if you're worried about kind of infringements on kind of citizens' privacy and general civil rights and stuff like that, when Trump talks about the enemy, from within and talks and floats about the idea of using the military against them, there are kind of like three options for somebody who's a Trump supporting but also claims to be concerned about this. They can either say, number one, that actually Trump will not be better from a perspective of being worried about the Patriot Act because he's very willing to engage in kind of clampdowns on and domestic espionage against enemies that are domestic and that are U.S. citizens. Or number two, Trump fearmongers about a threat from an enemy within that's so bad that like the military has to be used. But he won't spy on them or use the Patriot Act, in which case, okay, either the way he's describing it is out of scale, or he's allowing a danger to you, the American people, that he clearly thinks is bad enough that the military could be used, but he won't even use something like the Patriot Act. Like, what the fuck is up with that? He's clearly a bad politician. He's not representing you. Or number three, you don't actually think it's a problem, and you're actually pro-surveillance state if it's against the right people. And I think that no matter which one they pick, it's going to be a big complicator, or there's a big bullet to bite. What do you think?
Yeah, you should try it. They'll just own it and it'll be fine. They won't care. They'll own it and they'll say, yeah, I do think there are some people the military should go after. 100%. I mean, you see people like Tim Pool and was Tim Pool the one who tweeted it, or was it Vivek? There was a big, oh no, it might have been Elon saying like, we're going to use the police to go after people who spread misinformation or some bullshit. And I was like, wait a second. I thought people got mad at me. Aren't people getting mad at me right now because I said I don't want disinformation online? And there are no values there. They'll just say, oh, well, when we do it, it's actually okay because we have good reasons to do it. And that's it. And you can just keep fighting through that. But
do you think there's a difference when that comes up in kind of like a disconnected context and they don't have sufficient amounts of synapses to connect the two together? And it might be different if you like explicitly put those in conversation with each other, like at the moment, like the worry about the surveillance state and the comments that have been made about the enemies, like that they're both occupying, the space at the front of the mind at the same time instead of them being in like different contexts. When it's easier to like miss contradictions in belief systems and in things that you have.
Maybe, but I think the thing is that like when it comes up, if you bring up that it's related to Trump, they'll just 180 on it with no shame. But I don't know. I'm going to try it or think about it more.
Well, at least then you would get them to buy it on the fact that like, okay, you don't have a problem with their surveillance state, which it feels like it clashes with a lot of like the deep state, whatever things that they're doing. But yeah. Okay. I mean, in general vibe that talking points are going to be difficult. So. The big thing, I think that this is one of the major things that are significantly missing from the left and the liberal media sphere, is that I don't think the left and the liberal have like a coherent, a strong, and a simple narrative in terms of like what's going on in the country. And I think that this is, obviously shown in terms of the fact that I think a lot of conservative belief systems, everything kind of works together. They have this predetermined heuristic where basically any belief can be fixed, put in. But in a liberal system, there isn't really like the same amount of thing. So I have a bit of a thing written out here about, like what separates a narrative from a set of fact, which is that, a narrative is this kind of general heuristics that allows you to quickly situate new knowledge and situations and have a ready to go explanation for almost everything. Is this a good epistemological process? Absolutely not. I mean, ideally you want to analyze everything discretely, but it's kind of like an inductive shortcut in that way. But most people, they simply just cannot analyze everything themselves. And like having this kind of like narrative of this big picture meta heuristic, I think is something that's very important. And I don't think the left has anything like that at all in terms of like what the right does. Is this something you've come to as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can create punchy things on your side, but obviously you're making logical sacrifices to make them, having your little like punchy explainers. Yeah, but I think it's probably important to do. Yeah,
I think it's necessary, and I think it also comes back to I think this is something that you often say that. There is no virtue in like losing because you refuse to apply like a certain degree of tactic when your opponent is doing it. It's not like a virtuous thing to stick to some higher standard of behavior if it's costing you everything. And I think it is costing you everything because, I mean, to be honest, I mean, the vast majority of people, in the current situation of the United States, I don't think it's possible to have like an engagement in politics that doesn't revolve around a big narrative. And by not having one, you're losing out on like a huge amount of people.
Yeah, I think narratives are important. It's one of the reasons why going forward, I'm trying to be more constructive, positive. That's the thing I'm thinking of. And reading all this stuff about the U.S., like I think I've given much more positive cases recently over things like taxation or structure of government or or like foreign affairs for the U.S. Like, yeah, I'm doing that more. But
Okay, I'm gonna be a bit cynical here, which is that I don't necessarily know if like like a positive message in this way like is what I'm talking about and what I think is necessary. I think that there are a few things that really characterize a good narrative, and I think that the right has this in spades. And it's things like a sense of urgency and a threat, a clear divide between good and bad, us and them, with a clearly like defined self-identity, and the kind of frequent invocation of tropes in the narrative, underdog versus giant, integrity versus depravity, stuff like this. And I don't think the left has basically any of that at the moment. And
Yeah, this is something I talk about when I talk about like in-group, out-group. The right is very good at having their in-group, and they make people the out-group, and I think the left can do that better. I think the issue is a lot of our in-group just hates us because they don't support the candidate or the party. So a lot of the in-group on the left includes people like socialists or tankies or progressives or woke scolds or center-left like Dems. And a lot of these people are at ends with each other. So our in-group is very confusing, meaning that we don't have a good like othering for the out-group, and then we don't have very good strength in our in-group. So, yeah.
I think that this is something, though, that isn't just, something that needs to improve, but I think something that, you particularly can have a really big role in forming because of, your platform, the Eclipse Industrial Complex and everything. And I mean, I think if we look at a lot of your opening statements, generally, especially compared to right-leaning and MAGA people, there is a lack of a broader narrative. You talk about the specific facts. You talk about,
What was the most recent debate of mine you watched?
Let me open your YouTube. Do you have one in mind where you feel like you did it well, or?
I feel like generally when I'm trying to make opening statements, if I have the chance to write it out in advance, I do try to keep this like meta narrative of like what are the things that I'm pushing for, at least more than I used to.
Because when I'm thinking about it, is that, well, I think maybe this is something you've gotten better on, and maybe I'm just traumatized from that one 2v2 debate we did where you didn't prepare shit. But there was, but you generally, sometimes you don't even have like a particular opening statement. You're just like, yeah, like I'd rather go into the open and direct conversation. Which is
usually,
fine.
if I know now there's going to be an opening, I'll usually write one out because you have to lay all of your shit out. And your constructive positive argument plus your meta narrative is good to lay out. If the other person lays one out, you don't, then you're kind of at a disadvantage. Yeah.
But even then, I feel like when you do lay it out, I realized I didn't answer your question. I'm kind of through the Vivek fan debate, but I didn't make it all the way through. The Trump hired homosexuals, whatever. But that's a Twitter space, so that doesn't make sense. Probably the Marjorie Taylor Greene debate, which is the one I looked more specifically about as well, or the Marjorie Taylor Greene fan one. And in that one, I don't think that there was much of an opening statement, but it was also like a politer conversation, I guess. But I think even when you do, from my memory, go into a bit of further detail and stuff like this, it's usually kind of like about specifically what you're talking about. So if you're having a January 6th debate, you will spend a lot of time going through, like whatever the timeline of everything, including the electors scheme and everything like that. Maybe sometimes you will go like 1 degree of separation further and draw that into a general comment about Trump or about MAGA. But I think it needs to go even further. It needs to be like a huge narrative. It needs to be like, oh, it's the most recent example in a string of situations in which I think it needs to be a lot bigger. I think the narrative needs to be much larger. And I think that, get your best DGG creative writers on this. And, if you have like a big, huge meta narrative that you try to tap into in the beginning or like throughout all of your debates, I think that can make a significant difference because the left has no meta narrative at the moment.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay. I think those are the main things I have prepared. So hopefully this more practical thing is better than abstract ethical discussions about international relations.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. Well, I love you. Anything else?
No, I'll let you know if I, for some reason, decide to stick my head in the septic waste tank that is online debates again and try these talking points. But
good luck. Let me know. Keep me updated, okay?
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Be careful.
Bye.
I'm going to grab a sippy soy, and we're going to do something boring. Probably. 1 sec. Hello?
Hey, when I left yesterday, I heard that you had a question for me, but I was on my way to a dinner, so I couldn't pop back in.
Oh, I was curious if you'd looked up anything about the bullet ballot stuff.
Bullet ballot stuff? No, never heard of it. What is it?
Just the I guess not specifically that, but any of the voter fraud allegation stuff that people are talking about.
No, I actually haven't heard that there was like any viral instances of voter fraud. I mean, I'm sure there are individual examples out there, but like when I'm like doing research for videos, I haven't seen anything like was there like a big news story that I missed or?
I think there was that Substack going around about Republicans that had gained access to voter software and people saying that there were a lot of bullet ballots, meaning ballots where there was a single vote for just Trump and the rest of the ballot was a blank and all that. I don't know if you thought there was any validity to anything like that or anything. Yeah.
No, I haven't even heard of it, quite frankly. I like full disclosure, like I don't know about you, but I've kept from having my 2024 election postmortem until like Pew Research and other people like get some pretty credible polling out there, because the exit polls you got to take with a grain of salt. So I'm just kind of chugging along business as usual, like these crazy fucking cabinet picks and Senate Democrats are trying to fill as many judicial vacancies as they can before Biden leaves office. So it's just kind of business as usual. I'm actually surprised I'm not as upset as I thought I would be about the election outcome, even though I meant everything I said about Trump. And so I'm trying to like kind of in the background or on the back burner, like doing some spiritual assessment about why I'm not as pissed off as I thought I would be.
Huh.
How do you feel?
No, I mean, it's you keep moving on. What are you gonna do, right? Yeah.
You think you're resigned?
To 4 years of Trump, yeah? Or do you mean like to the political situation being hopeless, or?
Yeah, so I think that's where I'm struggling. I don't know what the political situation looks like. I'm listening to this Cenk was on trigonometry, excuse me, a couple of days ago, and the full VOD just dropped a few hours ago, and I'm listening to him talk, and I'm just becoming a bit more doomer. We're supposed to lose a couple of I think it was California and New York are going to lose some congressional seats to Florida and Texas because of like citizen migration and resident migration. And I'm thinking about like all the advantages that they currently have and how they'll probably try to exacerbate that. Like, what's to stop them from trying to pass the sort of tailor-made voter ID laws that you talk about that occurred in North Carolina that were struck down by a previous version of the court? What's to stop them from doing that at the national level? There's really not. Right?
I don't actually know. I feel like I don't know if it was David Shore, who I probably leaned too heavily into. I don't know if the voter restriction stuff actually helps conservatives that much. Like it feels like when they do it, they just mobilize or galvanize more support against them, and it's kind of hard to keep people from voting if they really want to. Like I remember there was stuff.
Really want to thing though. Like I agree with you. Like there are very few laws that actually keep people who are highly motivated voters. But that's the point, right? It's like low propensity voters, people who are like, man, I'll vote if it's like really easy, but if it's like even a modicum of difficulty, fuck it, I've got other things to do. That's my concern because. Yeah, and quite frankly, not even necessarily for just Democratic outcomes. I just think the voting should be as easy as possible. But I could, given that they're going to have, they won't have a filibuster-proof majority, but I am a firm believer that the Republicans will set the filibuster aside whenever it goddamn well pleases them, and you'll never convince me otherwise. I could see them, like they wanted to pass that SAVE Act during the last Congress, which was I read an article at the New Republic in a couple of places that it was going to be really difficult for married women because it was going to require birth certificates and all of the documentation to line up with their original surname compared to the last name that they take from their husbands, and like just all this like Byzantine bullshit. And it's just like the sort of thing where I'm like, what's the next election going to look like? Like the maps aren't really that good. Like we had a really brutal map ahead of us in 2024 for this election, but it's not like 2026 or 2028 are particularly favorable. And so it just seems like we're in an uphill battle. And then of course all the conversations that we're having about the media. I don't know, man. I wonder if it's like we already had formidable challenges to begin with, and I wonder if they're going to be demonstrably worse as a consequence of this election. Sorry.
No, why are you apologizing?
Oh, just because I had to get off, like I had to rant there for a minute.
We love your rants. You're good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the big thing we're going to be looking towards is how the admin performs for the next 2 years. I just like the problem is I say that, but I already see all the paths. I feel like nothing's going to happen, or it's going to be bad, and somehow it's all going to get blamed on the Dems, and the only good things that happen are going to be from the bills that Biden passed, and that's going to get, I don't know, just like Dr. Oz is the Medicare guy, and fucking RFK is Health and Human Services. Like, that's so wild. The Tulsi Gabbard shit is unforgivable. And
that's not even the total. Like, he still has like 50% of his cabinet that he has yet to name, right? So like we don't know. Marco Rubio, he wants to be Secretary of State. We got the big three: Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Attorney General. I think they just announced Secretary of the Treasury, going to be his Trump transition leader, who was favored by Elon Musk. That's the other thing. Is Elon Musk basically going to be the shadow prime minister? He was already on the horn with Trump when Trump called Putin and a couple of other world leaders. That's a problem. He's already extremely powerful because of Twitter and being the richest man on earth. And now he's going to be very proximate to like actual hard political power. Like, that's a really uncomfortable nexus for somebody like really anybody, but particularly Elon Musk to be at the center of. Mm-hmm. And then to your point, okay, here's like some people are like, again, I'm going back to Jen, like, oh, if Trump does really good things in the next 4 years, I mean, that's great, of course. And I'm like, actually, I think that's a pretty bad situation too. Like, Trump not shitting the bed or managing to like go blindfolded and navigate his way through this fucking minefield that we call American politics, only to emerge unscathed on the other side. I think that's also bad for the American experiment long term, because all it will do is incentivize people to be like Trump. So like you can imagine, like people are like, oh, you know what, the economy's gonna, he's gonna preside over this economic disaster. What if he doesn't? What if Trump walks away with a relatively high approval rating and manages to avoid crises, not again because he's a man of principle or skill, but just sheer dumb luck, which seems to favor him? Mm-hmm. Won't that also be pretty bad, because it will incentivize Republicans to double down even more? Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, obviously I agree with you. It's all fucking stupid. The problem is the only people saying, I think, that like, oh, maybe he'll do something good by coincidence. A lot of those people are the same people that think that Republicans and Democrats are the exact same anyway, so they don't even care that much. Like, I did a show this morning that'll be posted sometime soon with Cenk and Pacman, and that's basically Cenk's argument, is that it's all like the corporate lobbyist donor class, so it's, it's whatever.
You should listen to this trigonometry thing. I mean, the first half of it, he does pretty well, but I think like he also coughs up the ball too easily. Like, again, the one that drives me nuts is he's so generous with these two trigonometry assholes. Like, when they talk about fascism, like, is Trump really a fascist? Are the Democrats really too civil? Because that's part of the argument. Cenk says the Democrats are too civil, and I agree. Mm-hmm. These two push back, like, oh, they call Trump a fascist. President Biden called Trump supporters garbage, and Cenk pushed back a bit, and he's like, guys, all the shit that Trump says. And they're like, well, hey, listen, we're not defending Trump. I mean, if we were American voters, we would have voted for Trump, probably just given the two choices, but we're not like MAGA. And, when he's trying to like break bread with them, he'll say things like, Trump sometimes just talks a lot. He talks about locking up his political opponents, but he didn't actually try to lock up Hillary Clinton. It's like, yes, he did. He did try to lock her up. Like, this is one of the fucking things that we we just sweep under the rug. He did. He publicly and privately pressured people at the DOJ and White House counsel to investigate Hillary Clinton. The DOJ did try to investigate Hillary Clinton. The fact that it wasn't successful, you don't get fucking credit for that. It's so aggravating. It's like attempted murder is a thing, to use a rough analogy. Just because you fail due to sheer incompetence in your attempt to do a bad thing doesn't mean you get credit for your failure. And it's not just Republicans doing it, it's Cenk Uygur. And it's like, what are we doing here, man?
Yeah, it's really dumb. And I think they I'm trying to find this to make sure I'm not making this up. It's funny because they want to live in both worlds, but didn't Trump publicly announce that the reason why he fired Comey was for not going harder on Hillary? Or am I making that up? What did he say was his public? I thought it was related to the Hillary stuff. What was the public announcement for that? Do you know? Do you remember?
I can't remember. I know reportedly the turning point was when he met with Comey privately.
Yeah.
I think Jeff Sessions was the attorney general, and he told Sessions to get out of the room. And apparently that's a breach of protocol for the president to speak directly with the FBI director without the intermediary between them in the room. And it was that loyalty conversation. But I can't remember what the public predicate was for his firing of Comey. But I mean, to be fair, he actually doesn't need one. Like the FBI director, you serve at the pleasure of the president. It's an at-will position. I mean, he's already made clear.
Yeah, but at this point in time, we were still pretending to have some semblance of a functional government where the president wasn't above like answering to his constituents, the American people, or having like criminal liability for obstructing investigation or obstructing justice. So, yeah.
True. I don't know, man. Like, that's where I really struggle with this and this idea that, I keep hearing. Like, what really frustrates me is, like, Bill Maher had a conversation recently with this Fox News host. I'm blanking on her name, something Ham, Mary Catherine Ham, and Chris Cuomo, who used to be on CNN.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that we keep hearing from Trump apologists, even like the non-radical ones, is like, okay, the campaign's over. He says a lot of shit. You just don't need to worry about it. Like, the whole "just trust me, bro," like he was just talking shit. He was just drunk. He didn't mean that. I don't know why people I almost wonder if they're actually trolling. Like, do Trump apologists really believe that, hey, he will not only be the most powerful man on earth, he will be the most powerful man on earth, given the Trump v. United States decision and his party's control of government. And when he says all these unhinged things, just trust me, bro, I just don't feel like that cuts it. And then it makes me wonder if when conservatives say, oh, he was just talking shit, just trust him, give him a chance, if they're like trolling the opposition, like, we don't actually have to reassure you, not really, that Trump isn't going to be this unhinged authoritarian, because there's really nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, it's hard to know, but I kind of wonder if this is like an actual shame moment where they know that what they want is just so shameful they can't say it. So they just say things like, oh, Trump is just trolling, right? Like when he talks about putting global tariffs, a lot of people are like, I don't think he'll actually do that. But if somebody said that and they felt that and then Trump did it, you would expect most people to be upset. But my guess is that if people say that and he does it, then they'll celebrate. Like, yeah. Like all the people who are saying they were like 50-50 between like Kamala and Trump, it's so strange that for almost all of those people, when Trump won the election, they were like celebrating, like memeing, and it's like, that doesn't feel like a very 50-50 decision, but okay. Whatever.
No, not at all. Like your emotional response to it strongly suggests that it was more like a 90-10 thing, really, the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you, well, you did because you reacted to my video, but Kyle Kalinske went on Piers Morgan, and just based on some of the things he said, and he had a conversation with Vosh. I listened to some of it today. I don't know where you are with him. He and I talked about it briefly in DMs. I think that's a bridge that, given what you say the initiative is, or what your short, medium term project is going to be, I think that's a bridge worth building, because even though you guys have some serious disagreements, if you listen to what he said to Vosh or what he said on Piers Morgan, it's all, I mean, I'm not saying that he's like copying a transcript from you or anything, but a lot of the same sentiments that you're talking about, that I'm talking about, that Brian Tyler Cohen's talking about, he's saying the same thing, that, the media system is totally fucked, and we really have to work aggressively to wrest control of the media narrative.
My talking points, they're spreading. Yeah. I'm aware.
Exactly.
The only thing that scares me, and I haven't even talked I don't know what Brian's position is on this, so fuck me. And I might literally just be, this is like my exit from media, and I'm just never, ever, ever going to make anything, is I hate the donor class talks and the lobbyist talks and all the big bit. And I just think that's so irrelevant to all of the overall policy things in the USA. And it is so hard to get any left-leaning person off of those like primary fucking talking points. And it's like, and that in and of itself wouldn't be enough for me to care that much, because I can entertain disagreement there, but then the next step from that will be like this weird like fuck America or fuck capitalism or fuck all big business things. And these are the reasons why, like, I think Kalinske gives a lot of base takes, but Crystal Ball, I wouldn't co-sign anything she says ever. She's absolutely
well, they're only married, right?
Sure.
They're only married, right? That's not going to be an issue. I mean, you can have a civil professional relationship and a coalition building experience with a guy and loathe his wife, I suppose. I mean, listen, I take your point. When Hutch and I talked to both of them, I told Hutch, I'm like, I think we'll have some common ground with Kyle. Crystal's kind of the wild card, but it was actually a pretty civil conversation, and she gave she was much more reasonable than I expected she would be, given previous criticisms that she'd had of the Democrats and the Biden administration. I thought she was kind of more on the Ryan Grimm, Brianna Joy Gray side of things, but not so far. But even then, I think I remember. I can't remember where it was, but when you had the Progressive Victory thing, and I flew out there, and it was when you and Emma Vigeland and Vosh were on stage together. I remember thinking naively, the great thing about this is that they don't need to be best friends. Like the first 5 minutes, I'm thinking they don't need to be best friends like the Daily Wire crew seems to be. I feel like Destiny's the sort of person, and Vosh and Emma, and I was wrong about a couple of them, could have, professional relationships with people and still have disagreements. So, for example, I know you have a take on Citizens United, which I don't share, and Sam Cedar doesn't share, and others. But who cares in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, well, I was going to say that's just one part, but the next part that is really hard, and it's the reason why I won't co-sign Kyle Kalinske, is because the stance on foreign policy stuff it's a bridge too far for me. It's a genuine, like, in my opinion, like unhinged, like total factual disconnect from reality stuff. It's too hard for me to get on board with anything like that, because I don't know, like, the next time another foreign policy thing comes up, I don't want to be like lending my audience to these people, and then it's going to create these huge rifts and whatever. What is it the genocide that, just so I understand, like, because I don't deal with the foreign policy stuff, but like in particular, are you talking about Israel or Ukraine? Is it both, or is it not even particularized to those things? A lot of it was the Israel stuff. I don't know Kalinske's position in Ukraine. I hope it's not dog shit. I don't know. I don't know if I haven't even looked at it. People are saying Kyle is anti-Ukraine. I hope that's not the case, but yeah, I don't know. So that's like, that's a scary thing. Yeah, who knows? I guess we'll see what comes up, like, in the future issues, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, and I mean, I catch shit from it. It's what I mean. I watch the guys from the Vanguard, and I actually have a civil relationship with them, even though they say that I'm their favorite shit lib. And my thing is, I'm at the point, and I own the shillness of it. If you're anti-Republican, like if you're anti-GOP, that's almost enough for me. Like, you would have to do. I struggle to think of like a mainstream political stance that a person could have, even if it's relatively minor, but something that's within the Overton window of the left that you could possibly have, for me to not like bear hug you as an ally. It's part of the reason, like, some people have given me shit, even in your community, because I'm such a big fan of Mehdi Hasan, even though he's a critic of the Biden administration. But I think Mehdi Hasan, if you have the principled stance, if you take the position that the Biden administration is funding a genocide, it would be really easy to never talk about the amazing domestic agenda of the Biden administration and what they got accomplished. But Mehdi walks that tightrope. He has been one of the biggest defenders of the Democrats when it comes to their domestic policy, even though he constantly shit talks them about their foreign policy.
Actually, I agree with that, and I'm not sure, and I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I don't know if I know anybody else that's like that, because Mehdi is a really big, there is a genocide happening, like, no question about it, and highly critical of Israel and the U.S. support for it. But I don't ever get the vibes from Mehdi, and maybe I'm biased because we had the debate, but he feels like a guy who is like it is a strong support for the Democratic candidate. It's not even close. Like it's like almost foregone. It's so obvious what the answer is here. And the biggest issue I have with a lot of the genocide cucks is that it feels like the support for the candidate ends up being incredibly tepid. And it's like, well, no one cares then, right? You can't do this whole like spiel on genocide like over and over and over and over again and be like, yeah, I guess, gotta support Biden, LOL, or gotta support Kamala. And then it's like, yeah, nobody's gonna care. No one's supporting anybody at that point, Yeah.
Right. No, exactly. And I think that he's pretty rare in that respect. Aaron and I have disagreements on Ryan Grimm, for example. Like after Matt Gaetz was announced to be Attorney General, Ryan Grimm put out this thing talking about like all the based populist takes that Matt Gaetz has. It's just like, Then he follows it up with, not that Matt Gaetz would ever do anything like this, and not that Trump would ever permit him to do this, and not that that was the reason that Trump selected him in the first place, but I thought it was worth mentioning. It's like, well, why did you go out of your way to extol the merits of Matt Gaetz as fucking Attorney General when the guy is credibly accused of not just being, a statutory rapist? I think the age of consent in Florida, according to one article that I read about this scandal, is 17. So he's, an accused statutory rapist. He's talked about punishing Trump's political opponents and all this shit. And that's why he was selected for the role. Why would you even pay lip service to the idea that he would have like some noble function as the AG? I just don't get that. And I'm thinking to myself, would Ryan Grimm ever give a corporate Democrat or somebody he sees as a corporate Democrat the same benefit of the doubt as Matt Gaetz? And Breonna Joy Gray wants to reach across the aisle to Marjorie Taylor Greene, but okay, would you ever do that with Jared Moskowitz or Dan Goldman or somebody like that, or AOC or whoever? I don't know.
This is always why I lean into these like proxy arguments. I'm like, I don't think you mean this when you say that. Like when people are saying on the left and the right, they're like, I think we're being a little bit too harsh. Like you're not going to reach anybody with this type of messaging. Like you're being way too hyperbolic in your speech or whatever. And it's like, and then we have to sit here and watch. Okay, well here's a 2-hour video where Vivek talks about how we need to abolish 10 different government departments because the Department of Education provides absolutely no worth or value. And it's like, okay, well, that's not hyperbolic, right? Like they say these things, but they don't actually mean them. It's a fill in a lot for like, I just don't agree with your ideas, but I'm going to tone police you and pretend that that's the reason why I actually don't like it. A really good encapsulation of this, not to get too foreign policy driven, is like, I don't know if you've ever heard this argument before, but when Israel was forming in like 47, 48, they had this big partition plan. And one of the things that people say a lot is, well, they were going to give the Jews 55% of the land, and they were going to give Palestinians 45% of the land. Like, this isn't okay. Like, the Jews were a minority. Now, there's like a basic counter to that argument where you say, well, even though the Jews were going to get 55%, it was like 45% living on that 55% would have been Arabs and 55% would have been Jews. But that's a red herring argument, because if you push them and you go, wait a second, you said the 55-45 split was unacceptable, right? And they'll go, yeah. And you go, if it was 40-60, would that have been acceptable? Or 30-70? Or 20-80? Or 10-90? And they'll be like, well, no. Because the answer is none of that matters. So they'll point to one thing, like, well, this is unfair. And it's like, okay, well, let's say we remedy the fairness. But when you remedy it, it doesn't bring them any closer to actually supporting you. It's just like a thing they're complaining about. Just like when people are like, I wish we had somebody to choose from between, or that's not just like an old man, or we had an actual different candidate, or if it wasn't Biden, maybe I'd consider it. And then Kamala stuff's like,
and that happened, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, magically, there's a whole new list of reasons to not, and it's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, you're moving the goalposts. And so somebody in your chat was like, that's why these are not our allies. Just, I want to be clear. I don't think Breonna Joy Gray is an ally. I don't necessarily think Ryan Grimm is. I know less about him, but from what I've seen, I'm not particularly impressed because, again, for me, the immediate problem is defeating Republicans electorally. And so I think that's a tent which needs to include everyone as far right as never Trump Republicans to everyone as far left as, I mean, I don't know, just be like, I guess Mehdi Hasan would be as kind of the end point as best I can see, because he's the most far left who also supports the Democrats politically, not because he's happy about the choice, but he doesn't mince his words, and he's very clear that the Democrats are the preferable party. And he doesn't just mention it one time and then never mentions it again. So that's just, I think, the reality of the situation where...
Yeah, but the issue, if you do this, the issue is they won't support the candidate. They'll join you in shitting on Republicans, but the same attacks they have against the Republicans, they'll also apply to the Democrats.
Well, that's why I said Breonna Joy Gray. I totally agree. I don't think Breonna Joy Gray is an ally, or people like that, because, again, they won't get behind the candidate. Mm-hmm. I don't know much about Hassan, but my understanding is that he, never came out and supported a particular... Democratic candidate either.
Yeah.
So that doesn't sound like an ally either, right? If he's not making it clear that there's a candidate and that there's a party that's preferable and leveraging his audience accordingly, then no, I would just say that they're not allies in that respect. But I don't know, man. I think Kyle Kalinske, at a bare minimum, I think you should at least look that he might be bridge adjacent, and he might even be a good Bridges guest. Kyle, if you're listening, pressure Steven with me. I think this could be like a really good opportunity.
Kalinske? I feel like I've offered to have a conversation a lot, and I think he's like signals. I feel like he's literally trying to eat my audience. Like I feel like he signals like good things about me, but I feel like we've tried to chat before. I'm very wary of people that like want to talk to like make these alliances, but don't ever want to talk about things we disagree with. Like it makes me suspect. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? But I mean, obviously, like do what you want, do what you feel is right. We all learn as we go through. Maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we're all dealing in this. This post-2024 election world where the stars are realigning, the cosmos is reordering, and we're trying to find our way into it. And a lot of this stuff I'm like sussing out in real time too. Like I said, I expected, like my friends here in Charlotte, I've basically been MIA for pretty consistently since the election really started ramping up. And I remember like when I was streaming with Beasley, and you all were making fun of me, by the way, because you said that I looked like I was about to kill myself. I should say that I was looking down at an iPad refreshing results constantly, and that was just my resting sad face. I was not particularly sad in the moment. I was really tired. I got a text from friends afterwards saying, "How are you doing? Are you all right? I know you're so stressed out." And I was stressed, and I am stressed, but I thought I'd be like full on despondent, and it's a strange thing that we're in, and I almost wonder if we're gonna if we deserve what's coming to us. Like I guess maybe that's the other thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, does America deserve a second Trump administration?
I know what you mean, but yeah, I mean obviously we do. We voted for it, so yeah.
Last question. So I know you had a talk with PF Young. I got to hear a bit of that. How'd that go? Because I've had a couple of spars with him. How'd that go?
I mean, he tries to do this centrist, like radical centrist thing. It's literally his brand, and he tries to say it. But I'll give him props that he actually was willing to sit down with me and go through a full Vivek claim. Maybe that'll make him think about things a little differently in the future. I don't know. But he's just another person who has like very strong intuitions about a particular person because they say things that sound good. But then it's like, okay, well, hold on. Let's take a step and actually analyze what's being said. And then we did that, and it probably took us 30 to 60 minutes, like to go through just one like 3-minute little claim about the Department of Education, which was good. I give him big props for that, but it's kind of exhausting. And it's like, fuck, like, do you see how much work this is to just do just this one claim and this like 60-second highlight? Yeah.
Did it change at all how you understand the problem of centrism? The fact that, this, I'll say this about Paul. His centrism infuriates me to no end, and he absolutely grades Trump and the Republicans on a curve, and he is very incurious about things that matter infinitely more, in my opinion, than the two people in the United States who are under the age of 18 who have had, gender reassignment related mastectomies.
Yeah.
Like that's really fucking aggravating. But I don't think he's like maliciously bad faith. He's a likable guy. I'd grab a beer with him. So the fact that it took that long for you to like Socratically walk him through that, and for only to come out on the other side for him to say, well, fuck, I'm not in a position to defend this. So Vivek, you need to debate destiny on this. Like, he still clearly wants to cling to the idea that Vivek had something worthwhile to say, even though demonstrably he did not. Did it change how you look at centrism? Like, fuck, it's even more fucked than I thought it would be, or that I thought it was.
No, I think it reinforced my view of it. It's exactly what I think it is. Like, people have these huge fact worlds that they're in where they've just gotten so much bad fact that it's just so hard to, you just have to go, it's just so much that you have to go through to like break them out. Yeah. I don't know. I'll try, maybe, I don't know. There are things, there are ideas and thoughts around.
Maybe he could be like your ongoing experiment, not to
but then it's like it's weeks and months of somebody who doesn't have a strong political like surrounding. Like, I don't know if his family is pressuring him to be one way or another, and it's just so like he would be the easiest person. It would take so long, and I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. Yeah.
Cool. All right, buddy. Well, listen, you have a great rest of your day. Good luck with the Federalist Papers. I'll talk to you later.
I love you. Be careful, babe.
Love you too, buddy. Bye.
Bye. Oh, what a night. No, wait. Is that the song? Oh, what a night. Or is it What a Life? I don't even know. Can you stream the AE studio setup? Maybe. My box has got here. I have to rebuild that place before Dan comes or it's gonna be fucked. Oh, I go down to do that now. Oh, fuck. Really interesting op-ed from New York Times Conservative. Donald Trump is already starting to fail. Cringe. Cool. Nice. Why would the public opinion change? What could you see as a catalyst? For example, the populist movement was in a large part an outgrowth of the Great Recession. I mean, like, if you, at some point, you know, reality catches up with the lies. And I mean, like, if we got to a point where we were literally, you know, destroyed civilization and society had fallen apart, then people would be like, okay, fuck, maybe Trump wasn't the guy. It's just, how far do we have to dig before we realize we're, you know, like digging a hole? The misinformation atmosphere has made it so that hole can get deeper and deeper and deeper before you realize you're digging, you know? But, yeah. It's a hard problem. Yeah, hard for your mom. Texas has announced that they are offering the incoming Trump admin a plot of $1,400 plus acres to stage the camps for its mass deportation operations. Jesus Christ. Damn, they talked for an hour and 15 minutes?
So we'll talk politics for a second. We got Mark Cuban here, by the way. This is a guy who I've loved this guy from afar. He entertains me because I learn something new when I hear him talk about anything other than politics. Politics, maybe. but I want to get your take on just, you know, some market participant myself. What do you think is going on in the markets right now? And I want to do the preface, if you don't mind sharing with the audience too, your brilliant move when you sold your first company. You're a guy who knows what direction markets are going. You're a macro
I wish I was a guy who knew what direction markets were going, right? I tend to be somewhat conservative, unless it's an industry I really, really know. But today as we're doing this, obviously the market's had a rough day, and I think it's a function of the fact that
it's been a
rough week, yeah, for sure, rough couple weeks. And so I think when things are working really, really well, people forget the past, and so they tend to assume the trend is your friend, and they'll just keep on going in that direction. And and that also leads to people taking on a lot more debt than they otherwise would. Things like the Japan, the JP White trade. There's just so many ways where people are like, wait, it always goes up, right? This is just a pullback. We saw that in the late 90s with the internet bubble, and I'm not saying it's a bubble now, but you're seeing that now. And the minute something happens, particularly when there's multiple things that combine to create a problem, then you tend to see a more aggressive pullback.
When did you sell your first company, the tech company?
The first company was a company called Micro Solutions. I sold it when I was 29. That was in the 80s. And then we started a company called AudioNet, which turned into Broadcast.com, and that was the start of the whole streaming industry. We were the first streaming company.
And when was that sold?
We sold that in 2000.
Right. So this is the famous one. I always liked this as a guy growing up. So I got my first job. I got into the world of hedge funds in 07. So I was a biology guy. graduated in 07, and I got into biotech investing, which I can tell you more about my background. And actually, for people to know, this is the first time Mark and I are meeting, but we texted and messaged each other a lot. But anyway, so in 2000, the reason you were famous, in my mind, was actually not even the company you sold, though. That was an interesting story.
Yeah, it was the hedge I put on
The
after.
hedge, yeah. So how did that work? So it was a stock-for-stock deal?
No, so here's what happened. So we sold broadcast.com to Yahoo for stock, no cash. And the rules back then were I had to wait 6 months before I could do anything because I was not an insider. And
was
so
that the rule, or was that a demand of the acquirer?
No, that was a law. That was the law. And so I couldn't do anything for 6 months. And so with that in mind, I went and shorted this one index that had Yahoo that was 5% or less. But everything else was just internet stocks. And the idea was that would get me through my 6 months, after which then I could, do what I was going to do. So I put every penny I had for the most part into shorting this hedge fund. And I figured if the internet stocks cratered within that 6 months, I would be okay, right? And if not, fortunately, then I could put on this call. So it didn't crater. I pretty much lost all my money on that short. But now I have a lot of money in Yahoo stock. And so what I did was I sold calls and bought puts. I hedged it. And I did it over a multi-period of time. And as it turns out, I kind of, a lot of people, not just me, expected the internet stock market might drop considerably. Well, it did. And I ended up actually making more money from the hedge than I did from selling Yahoo to Yahoo. And it was called one of the top 10 trades in Wall Street history.
And actually, the stock for stock exchange, that's even a tax-free trade, basically, right?
Well, you do stock for stock, but not when you put calls and puts on it, right?
No, your stock for stock was, the stock for stock merger was tax-free, but the calls and puts.
No, because effectively it could have been, but it wasn't, right?
Okay,
but I still had to, I still had to put the collar on. Because everybody was talking, because I remember going on CNBC, because I told people I put this collar on, and Yahoo was still going up in price. And they were like, don't you feel stupid that you put this collar on and Yahoo's still going up? I'm like, no, I'm sitting on my G5. I don't feel so stupid at all. Yeah, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, right? I mean, I had a B next to my name. It was more money than I ever dreamed of. And so I didn't need to get greedy.
And was that the principal source of your wealth that you're sitting on today, or have you actually compounded more since?
No, I've made a lot more since then.
The American way. I think we're on the same page there. So then I start seeing it a couple years ago, and this is...
Okay, actually, you know what? We'll watch this tomorrow. Fuck it. All right, I'm going to go downstairs and start doing shit. I'll start streaming from down there, and then we'll goon in the podcast factory. Stay safe. I'll be back.